hello, and welcome back to my AuthorTube channel. I'm Autumn Ashley, and today we are going to be talking about all of the writing things. I still sound a little congested, even though it's been a couple of weeks since I was sick. So if I sound a little congested, it's because of that. I'm still, I guess, recovering. I wanted to come on here and do a whole video talking about the month of May. There was a lot that happened, but there was nothing that happened. I wanted to give you guys a writing update and really talk to you guys about what all that has been going on with my writing since my last writing vlog. It's been a couple of weeks since I posted that vlog, but I know I talked about my game plan too going into writing this first draft, and I think we're going to tweak some of those things. So this is just really a check-in, and we're going to sit down, we're going to talk about pretty much all of May, and then talking about the whole little writing tracker thing that I had talked to you guys about in my game plan for starting the first draft. I didn't make as much progress as I wanted to with my writing. It's fine, you know, we do have those months where we're not as productive in the whole writing realm. We're not as productive as we would like to be. We still do get a little bit of work done, which I did get some work done in the month of May. I want to pretty much just start at the beginning and talk about my writing tracker. In my game plan video, I had talked about I wanted to track my writing, and I wanted to have little squares and then color in the squares green if I made progress, or if I worked on my story in any way, shape, or form, or if I didn't work on my story for that particular day, I was going to bubble it in red. Well, I lied to you, I lied to myself. I ended up not doing that. I ended up only coloring in green if I sat down to physically work on the draft, which that's what I should have said from the beginning. You can listen to a playlist and you can pin things on Pinterest, but that's not physically working on the draft. So I ended up tweaking that a little bit. I only colored in the box when I worked on the draft. The writing tracker started on the 14th of April, and I wanted to go until the 18th of May. And that whole time, so it's like a little bit more than a month, I did track my writing, and I only wrote 4 days. Out of that whole time, I only wrote 4 days, and that's not acceptable. If I want to finish this draft, if I want to improve my writing and get this draft out, and I want to be a published author, I have to dedicate more time to working on my draft, which means I have to learn how to schedule in writing into my schedule. And I think part of the reason why this did not work is because I didn't necessarily block off time in my day to write. I had the writing tracker, but in my planners, I would plan out everything else, but I wouldn't put a box for writing, which makes no sense, right? Like, why would I do that? And that was something that I had noticed a couple of weeks into doing this writing tracker. Kind of at the beginning of May, I had noticed that I wasn't making as much progress in my whole drafting for draft 1, but I identified the reason as to because I wasn't blocking off time. And why I wouldn't block off time, I don't know. It could have been something with that weird writing slump that I was in, where I didn't give myself a good break before I proceeded into drafting. So then my subconscious wouldn't want to schedule myself to write, so then I wouldn't write. It's all me. I'm just trying to identify where I think some of these issues had come into play and how I could have maybe identified them sooner, or maybe had a better approach and had a better plan, pretty much. Only writing 4 days out of a little bit more than a month and a half is not acceptable, and that's not what I want for my writing. I want it to be something where I can sit down more than 4 days and work on my writing. I'm gonna try something different going forward. I don't know if I'm going to necessarily track if I write for a day or if I don't write for another day, because I think once I had realized that I was not writing a whole lot of these days, it was then discouraging me from writing. I was feeling like, oh my gosh, you should be writing. You should be doing this, you should be doing that. And then it put like that negative thought or those negative thoughts in my mind. Then I didn't want to sit down and write because I couldn't concentrate, because I'm like, well, now I have to write because I haven't written for the last 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I'm going to proceed with this type of writing tracker going forward. I just don't think it worked for where I'm at with this story and this season of my life. Not to say that I'm gonna not try it again. It might work with another story, or it might work when I'm editing this first draft. I think going forward, maybe not so much focus on how many chapters we're gonna write. We're definitely not gonna be concerned about the word counts, but I do think instead of doing the whole writing tracker idea that I had originally, I think we're going to specifically block off time several days out of the week to work on writing. I know I do my best work when I do writing sprints. I've done writing sprints for a couple of years chapters now. They work for me. So I think what I'll do is I'll do like a 25-minute writing session and then like a 20-minute break, and then do another 25-minute session and then a 20-minute break. I'm much better at doing them sprint-wise versus sitting down and forcing myself to write for 2 hours straight. That just doesn't work for me because I'm one of those people where I have to get up and refill my water, stretch my legs. That's how we're going to proceed going forward, not necessarily doing the daily tracking like this, but I will dedicate time and block off time 2 to 4 times a week to try to get this first draft written. May 16th was the first day of my week and a half of not feeling very well. At that point, I had finished the first chapter and the second chapter of Project Burning Roses. So I sat down and I was like, let me just do 15-20 minutes of writing and try to write a little bit for this third chapter. I sat down, had read the first 2 chapters, and I did not feel well, and I didn't feel like I was going to be doing my best work at that time. Instead of writing and drafting new words, I revisited those 7 scenes that I wrote back in February, and I did talk about writing those scenes. This is when I was pantsing the story to try to get a good feel for the story and my mind in that world. One of those scenes, I believe it was either the 3rd or the 4th scene that I had written then. I really liked that scene, and I felt like it would have been a good chapter 3. I copy and pasted it into my draft 1. Some people might call that cheating. I had already done the legwork. Work smarter, not harder, in my opinion. I reread through that scene and I actually didn't feel very well after that, so that was pretty much all I did that whole week, was just copy and paste that into chapter 3. I was really disappointed because I had wanted to try to hit my deadline, since May 18th was the last day that I wanted to try that whole writing tracker and document and see how far I could get with my story. In that whole month and a half, I had only written like those 2 chapters and then copy and pasted that one scene to chapter 3. So I hadn't made a whole lot of progress. I was supposed to meet with my critique partner on May 18th, which did not happen because I was sick. And then last week, I think she was feeling unwell. We wanted to check in with each other at least once a month, but we didn't check in with each other at all for the month of May. It was just an all-around bad month for the whole writing area, aspect, part of my life, whatever you want to call it. I believe the first day that I had ended up writing was with 2 of my writing friends on Saturday, May 28th, which was, 4 days before the month actually ended. And we spent, I think 3 hours actually, but it was probably only like an hour and a half of actual writing that we spent time writing. And I went through that scene that I copy and pasted for chapter 3. I went through that and added a little bit, took some stuff out and changed it to where I feel like it would have been a better fit for my first draft. On May 29th, I had a live stream with Sarah Sutton. It was one of our midnight live streams. I ended up finishing chapter 3 and I started on chapter 4. I really liked one of the scenes that I had wrote back in February when I was doing my whole pantsing process. Again, work smarter, not harder, especially when we're trying to just get the bare bones of the story out. I copy and pasted that scene, went through that, and I did some edits. I ended up moving some things around, adding some information to it if I needed to. And I'm still working on chapter 4. I'm not finished with that chapter 4. I ended up getting through 4 chapters of my story, almost 4 chapters. Let's back up. let's call it how it is. Almost 4 chapters in a whole month and a half of starting to work on my story. For my previous project that I was working on, Project Brina, it took me, I believe, about 5 months to finish the first draft, and I know I did not want it to take me 5 months to write the first draft. I wanted it to be 2 or 3 months, and then we can go ahead and just start jumping into the edits and start beefing up the story. In order for me to do that, I have to write more than 4 days out of a month and a half. With that writing slump and then me getting sick and physically not being able to write, I think that helped me get out of my writing slump, believe it or not. I think it helped give me that rest and give me that time away from the story that I needed. I feel much better. I feel a lot more inspired, motivated, a lot more prepared for my story with taking that break and not looking at my story, even though I was still trying to force myself to work on that 3rd chapter while I was sick, and then I didn't. Taking that time away from the story, it's made me sit back, relax. Remember that it's okay to take things slow. We don't have to run around doing 8 million things. We don't need to do that. That's very unnecessary. I know I talk about Brandon Sanderson all the time, but I literally cannot stress his writing lectures enough. Last week, I ended up watching a couple of his videos. There's just something about the way he talks about writing and the way that he's just so passionate about it that it really helps motivate me. And so I think meeting up with 3 of my writing friends, watching some of Brandon Sanderson's lectures, and then taking that unexpected week and a half, 2 weeks off from writing, I think it's helped push me out of that writing slump and has given me the motivation that I needed to continue. So the month of May was a weird, strange funk mess, but I do think we are out of that, and I think it's good that I acknowledge that it was a rough month and that the game plan that I had originally started with may not be necessarily working for the story, and that we're going to try something different. Those are all the things I wanted to talk about. Talk to me in the comments. Let me know all of your thoughts about what I've talked about. If these are things that you guys have gone through, if you're currently going through, just know that you're not alone. I do think it's a normal part of the writing process. It's normal. It's going to be okay. You're gonna get through it. I'm gonna get through it. I do feel myself getting through it. I do have high hopes for the rest of this month, and I do want to make a lot of strides with my writing. I hope you guys enjoyed this little writing update. I felt like I needed to talk about the month of May since we didn't have a whole lot of vlog footage, since it was just kind of a mess of a month. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed and you want to be part of my writing journey and enjoy the chaos for the months to come, please be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.